want some sauce?
Scene 1, Apple, take 1.
What's up, everybody? How's it going out there? I want to talk a little bit about doing measurements, making your own tape measure, things like that. If you don't have a tape measure, if you don't have a yardstick or whatever, how do you go about doing measurements on the fly if you don't have a ruler or tape measure or whatever, okay? And this is something that I'm actually surprised a lot of people don't really know how to do, or they've never really thought about it. But being someone like myself that's weird, as well as somebody that's been building things and working with wood and you name it, just always using tools and always using measurements, after a while you just improvise when it comes to measuring devices. Now you need to realize that when you see something like a ruler like this is actually a reference stick, okay, that has been organized well. That's really all this ruler is, okay? In other words, this is giving you 2 points of reference and saying between point A and point B, that's an inch, okay? That's your reference. And then between this and this, that's 2 inches, etc., okay, as we go down the line. But the reality is we have references all over the place. Let me give you an example. If I were to, this razor sitting here, so I'm going to use this razor. If I end up taking this razor and I place it right here, okay, this goes a little bit beyond 1.5 inches. This is, in carpenter lingo, we would say this is 1.5 inches heavy. This razor is a reference. This razor is a ruler, okay? And what it does is it measures 1 9/16. And now I have a ruler everywhere I go, and this will always tell me what is exactly 1 9/16 inches. If I take it and I set it here, I just ignore the blade portion, the actual part that has been shaved, and we say we're going to start with the line behind it. That is 3/4. So now everywhere I go, this, once again, is a ruler that measures both 3/4 of an inch from here to the beginning of the blade on the back side, or 1 9/16 inches from here to here. Now if I look at the line starting here, where this fold is, to this next line in the fold, that's 1/4 inch. Okay, the inside hole right here is close to 1/4 inch, but it's a little shy as well, this hole. But this part right here is 1/4 inch. Okay, if I turn this over and I measure from the inside of this little curve to the outside, that's my 1/8 of an inch. Okay, and so now if I were to carry this, just a razor with me, I have a means of making my own ruler just with a razor, because I know point A to point B right here, this is always going to be 1 9/16 inches. Okay, I also know that the distance between here and here is 1/8 of an inch. I also know that if I end up coming over here and I go like that and like that, that is my 1/4 of an inch. Do you understand what I'm saying here? I can use anything really as a frame of reference, that's 3/4 of an inch, and make a accurate ruler out of it. Maybe some of you survival guys out there carry razors with you like this, and now you sit there and say, geez, this whole time I was carrying a ruler and I just didn't know it. And the reason why is because it hasn't been marked. Nobody has taken a laser and said, hey, this is 3/4, this is whatever. That's the reason why you don't know about that. Let me give you another example. Something you might just find on the side of the road or something, You can measure these and come up with a decent thing here. So this is almost 3 inches. So this is just a 1/16 less than 3. Now if we were to take this and use a pencil, okay, or a pen, and go around the outside, that is going to end up adding probably like around a 32nd, okay? 32nd on both sides, that's getting closer to our 1/16th, and then that might actually end up making a perfect 3-inch circle, which it does. Okay, so anywhere that I go, as long as I have this, I can measure out 3 inches accurately. Folding this into 3 portions, I've got 1 inch, inch, inch. Folding those, you see, you go 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. And so just using this, I was able to create a ruler that could really go indefinitely. It just depends on how many times you want to fold something up. What if you're in an area and you don't have cans of beans around, or you don't have a razor blade or whatever, all of the things that you carry with you, you should always take a measurement of them. At least I do a lot of this stuff. Things that I always carry with me. Maybe it's a credit card. You know, maybe it's your driver's license. You know, maybe it's a key that you have. See, I have a ruler just like you have a ruler that you carry everywhere that you go, but you just never bothered really paying attention to it. It's right here. It's your palm. It's your hand. There's all sorts of cool measurements that are going on here. For instance, I know that from the tip of my pinky right here to the very first line on my knuckle is 1 inch. Okay, and I know that from this line right here to this very first line popping up is about it's almost 3/4 of an inch. It's a little bit bigger, but the thickness of a pen or a pencil mark will take care of that extra amount. So that's my 3/4 of an inch. I know that this white portion of my thumbnail, from the top of it to the bottom, 1/8 of an inch. I also know that if I come over here and I measure the distance between these two lines, 1/8 of an inch. I know that if I measure from here, if I take my hand and I measure from here to the inside portion of the web, that's 3 inches. So if I end up making a line at the tip of my finger, like that, draw a line down the center, down the side here, make a line right there at the beginning of the web, that should be about 3 inches. Now, I need to make sure that this is exactly at the end, okay? So the distance between here and here should be 3 inches, okay? Now, if I am retaining water, or I'm dehydrated, or something, or my hands are swollen, this might change. But typically, we're okay. So, right there. So there's our 3 inches, okay? If I take my pinky and I go like this, and I measure from here to here, that should be 1 1/8 inches, okay? So if I measure from here to here, 1 1/8 inches, okay? If I take my hand here, I measure there to there, okay, which is actually this distance right here, right? That should be 1 inch. So let me put this right here so you can see. So if I were to bring that up, we have our inch, okay? Same thing, if I were to take this measurement here from this line to about right there, that should be 3/4 of an inch, which it is, okay? And this is a little harder to do with your thumb like this, but if I were to take this and say from there to there, for the little white portion, that should be 1/8, and it is, okay? And with this type of ruler that I'm carrying with me, my hand, there's no, everywhere I go, as long as I have a marking tool and a piece of paper or something, I can make a ruler that just keeps going, going, and going, and it will become, and you can make it pretty accurate by, you know, checking your work. In other words, I know the distance between here and there is 3 inches, right? I also know that the distance between here and here is 1 inch. So I can use this to double check my work, right? You keep comparing, and eventually you're going to get to something that's very, very accurate, and then you could just keep going and going and going and going, and then now you've got a ruler everywhere that you go, okay? So let me actually, let's not even use this, because I don't want you to think I'm cheating. Here's an old piece of guitar binding. There's no measurements on this, okay? Well, we can use this as our ruler, okay? So we'll end up putting some ink here. We know that my pinky, from here to there is 1 inch. And I'm going to continue doing this. So I've got 5 inches here, but let's double check our work, okay? So if I come in here and I put my palm down and I bring this into the web of it, it's saying that this needs to go back ever so slightly, like the thickness of a pen type thing here. Okay, now I'm gonna go up to the next one. This needs to come back a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna go up to the next one. That's saying it's pretty close, but it looks like it needs to go back a little bit. And I can kind of keep going like this. Okay, so now let's have a little bit of fun. I'm going to show you. Some people are always amazed on how the Egyptians were able to make things square and all this other stuff, and it must have been aliens. Bullshit. You know, the primitive technology guy would probably like this. We're going to break out the ruler that we had made using just the measurements of our own hands. And as long as we double check everything, make sure that everything's accurate and all this other stuff, you know, we should have a fairly accurate ruler. But we need something that is accurate, something that is consistent. Okay, we do need it. So if there's variance in this, we're going to get variance on this next thing. But what we're going to do is I'm going to take my pen here and let's draw a line like this. Okay, this thing gives a little bit, but I'm going to make a line here, and I'm purposely making it out of square. Okay, this is an old carpenter's trick. We can make our own. We can make our own carpenter square. Okay, what we do is we measure 3. That's our 3 inches. We measure 4 down this, and between these 2 points it should be 5. So remember, 3, 4, 5. So bringing that right there and bringing this up to here, 5 is right there. That is not square. Okay, these should intersect. So what we can do is make sure that this is exactly on those 2 intersecting points up here. Make a little mark. Okay, turn it a little bit. Make sure that that is on those 2 intersecting points. Make a mark. It's important that this is accurate. That's why I'm not spinning it. If it was a tape measure, I'd spin it, right? But now we have a line. So from here to here, here to here, here to here, etc. Okay? So that's our line. Now, what we do is we measure 4 inches over. And wherever 4 inches ties, because right there's 4 inches. If I make a line like that, that should be square. Okay, we should have something that's really close to a perfect square. We can only make it so perfect because of the ruler that we're using. But if I take my regular square here, I line it up, if I take my pen here, I'm just going to kind of go from here and extend it so you can kind of see where these lines actually are. Okay, so the darker ones, that's square. Look at that. So right here, it's dark, you can see, and you can see right here, it continues through. Using this, now I have a template for a perfect right angle. And once again, the only thing I've used is my hands and a pen and some type of straight marking stick. That's it, right? We can take this a step further, and now that we have this at our thing here, we can go 2 inches. Let me use a different pen. 2 inches. Okay, now we have a 45-degree right there. Okay, so right here, from here to here, that's our 90. This, if you were to consider this center right here, this would be 180 degrees. It's the exact opposite. Okay, but this is a 45. If we were to, I fucked up. I screwed up because I'm looking at this line, and I shouldn't have done that. I should have looked at this line underneath it. Always erase old lines, because that makes a difference. That's our 45. Okay, that's our 45. My apologies. Now, since this is a piece of paper, if we were to cut these two sides, fold it in half because we know that it's a perfect square, we'd have a line down it, and then that would also give us a 45 from these two. If we measure between these 2 points, which this kind of looks like it's 2 3/4 heavy right here. So 2 3/4 heavy is going to be 1 3/8 heavy. So it's going to be a little bit more than 1 3/8. So right here is about half in between these two, and should be like right around there, measuring between those, if I'm not mistaken. So if I take this and this, and I could refine this ruler to make it much more accurate by adding the eighths and stuff in there, but going like this, once again, that should be 45 degrees. I can take another measurement. So I can go 3, right here is 3, another 3. We can measure in between these two, or fold. And we're getting a measurement that's about right there. That, I can almost guarantee that's 1/4 of an inch. Okay, I can almost guarantee that that's 1/4. That is going to be 1 inch and 1/8. Which should be right about there. To find center on this, I get to my guesstimate, which I'm pretty sure that that's right. I come over here on the line, do a little line right here, thinking that that's where my center is, bring this over to the middle, and then this should intersect with that line if it is truly center, and it is. If not, I can move it back and forth. I mean, like whatever the distance, I can split it. Okay, now always get rid of those old marks. I'm telling you, I'm doing it again. I have to get rid of this one. I made a mistake with the wrong tick mark again. Always get rid of those lines because it's easy to screw up like that. 45 divided in half is 22 degrees. 0.5. 22.5 degrees. Okay, and then 22.5, that'd be 45. 22.5, 22.5, that would be 90. So if we end up saying 22.5, then it goes to 45, then it would go to 67.5, and then if we were to go 22.5, just to double check, 6, 7, 8, that should be 90. So this right here should be at 67.5 degrees. And we can keep just dividing in half and dividing in half and dividing in half, or folding, and eventually we're going to end up having a accurate protractor. With a survival knife that I had made for myself, I know a lot of people are like, what, this survival knife? Yeah, I've been using it to cut up a bunch of wax, so that's why it looks like that. But what I've made for myself here, I've embedded a earth magnet in it. So this whole blade has a light magnetic charge to it. So if I were to take a shoestring or anything, because I balanced this and I basically tie it right around here and I hold this up, and I just let this kind of find equilibrium, it's going to find its magnetic north and south, right? So if I end up having this just kind of hang over here, this is going to end up telling me exactly where north is, and I'll adjust this to north. Okay, and then from here now, I pretty much have an accurate compass, and I know exactly, you know, the direction I need to go. I can go ahead and, you know, set my azimuth, as they say, and just keep on trucking. But that's the whole reason why I've got this magnet in here. But that's that, guys. I just thought that, you know, it would be interesting to do a video like this and to show you how to get by with nothing but yourself, you know. We depend a lot on tools and rulers and things like that. We depend an awful lot on it when they're conveniences, and they're nothing more than conveniences. You know, if you know Just some basic things. You take the time out. If you see all the brown stuff on me, it's because I just spilled dye on myself. I'm really pissed about it. But if you just take the time to get to know yourself, take some measurements from here to here, you know, different things like that. Measure all these lines, because these lines are going to be part of you. You have a ruler, you know. I know my foot, by the way, when I have my shoe on, from the front to the end, is almost dead on a foot. Almost dead on. Well, I mean, it is a foot because it's my foot, but I mean 12 inches, you know. It's a great way of measuring things. You always have a tape measure. You always have a tape measure. You just haven't bothered learning the references yet. You know, same thing. You know, if you have a knife or whatever, I have to clean this up. You can measure from this line to this line. How many inches is it? You might not always have your knife. You know, and that's one of the things that I really have a big problem with a lot of these bushcraft guys and these survival experts and all this other stuff. You know, they've got tons of tools with them. You know, they're out and about and they got tons of tools. They have, you know, to me, I look at it like, you know, you should be able to get by with nothing, you know. And granted, that's a major inconvenience. You know, it's a major inconvenience, and it takes a long time to find certain things that you can use that are adequate tools to make better tools, right? To make your life more convenient. But luckily, we're all in the city for the most part, and you're never any more than maybe an hour away from some type of civilization, you know, walking distance. That's like worst case, you know. You're always within about an hour of something. And there's always something around that you can use in order to get by, you know. And I think people depend on their tools way more than they just depend on their intelligence and ingenuity. And I guess, you know, what you do is if you don't have the intelligence or ingenuity, you know, you depend on the tools, I guess. I don't know. But this is a type of thinking. This is how I see. This is how you should, if you really want to be a survivalist, if you really want to be able to do stuff that is going to keep you alive in bad situations, no matter what situation, this is the type of thinking right here. You know, get by with like nothing. But if, you know, how are you going to do this type of stuff if you're depending on tools? It's like, well, if I had my rucksack full of tools, I'd be able to get by. You know, if I had my flint and steel, you know, I'd be able to get by. You don't always have that. Ingenuity, intelligence, stuff that's always around you. Anyway, guys, that is that. And maybe after seeing what I've done here, it helps you a little bit understand how the Egyptians might have been building accurate things back in the day, because it's really not that big of a, it's like a no-brainer, really. It's just you become incredibly dependent upon and spoiled by modern day tools. Anyway, that's that. Until next time, talk to you later.